Ladies and gentlemen, Big Hairy News.
Hey, kia ora koutou, it's whānau. Welcome back to another week, another episode of Big Hairy News. Kia ora, Chewy.
Kia ora, Pat, and I'd like to start tonight's show by shouting out a couple of people I met today.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't get names because I'm bad at this, but definitely had a couple of people shout at me as I walked down the street, and also at I was lucky enough to do a tour of the Otago Wildlife Hospital.
Oh, cool.
Which is very cool. I'd love to show you photos, but I am not allowed.
How come?
But yes,
Why not allowed?
they don't want essentially a live update of what animals they may or may not have there.
Really?
Yes, because people are sometimes very weird about it, and if there's a certain animal there, then it seems that people get quite insistent of, I just want to come in and have a look for a little bit at really odd hours, and it's all about me and it's not about the animal, sort of thing. So it's something that they have learned over time, that if they ask people to not post pictures on social media, that makes things a lot easier for them. But
So how did you get to visit it? Sounds like it's a bit secret squirrel anyway.
Well, my partner, Claire, participated in a fundraising event for the Otago Wildlife Trust, I believe it was. You may have seen similar things around the place where there's a big, like, fiberglass animal that gets painted up by various local artists. Well, yes, my partner did one of those, and was it's actually going to live at the Otago Museum full time now.
Cool.
They bid on it, and there's another one at the Wildlife Hospital. We got extended an offer to come through and have a look.
Very nice.
This evening, and it just, like, I love New Zealand animals, and just to be like so close to a yellow-eyed penguin.
Oh, you just said a
as
word
an
of
example.
animal. For, like, if there was one,
Which they may or may not have there.
you were looking at a picture.
I was looking at some very, very rare birds. And to be that close was just a real privilege, and
Very
I
cool.
can't thank the good people down there enough for the work that they do. For those of you that don't know, especially the yellow-eyed penguin in Otago is under a huge amount of pressure. And at this point, they are at the stage of, during a breeding season, they will uplift all eggs and all chicks. To make sure that they get enough nutrition in the early months before releasing them back in the world, because they're that under pressure from habitat loss, being able to find food, and that's all linked with overfishing and climate change and all of those other good things that we've done to the planet. So, yeah.
Okay, big show tonight. I just noticed Ryjan's comment, anyone else buffering? I was watching a little bit of Bomber's show and I was getting the Circle of Doom. I wonder if there's something going on with YouTube at the moment, because
we saw a bit of that last week.
I'm on a gig line here, so there's no reason any downloads. My download speed is a gig, so watching a YouTube video, and I noticed it a little bit towards the end. Also, Brother Monk, just before we keep going, I thought Pat was on holes this week. Whoops, LOL. I am. I'm coming to you from Coolangatta. This is a green screen.
He's found the only Airbnb in Australia that looks like his basement studio in his mum's house.
Yeah. No, I go on holiday next week. Lots going on today, but before we get into things, Citizen Gold, 157 days under we vote. Big conversation tonight. Something that's not in the show notes, which you're obviously going to cover off, is the Fonterra secret email service conversation. We'll start with that in just a second. We were going to get into the show quickly tonight. We won't do what we did last week and talk for the first 20 minutes, then go, how did the show run long? I don't understand. But just a big reminder that we are definitely having a meetup this Saturday at 11 a.m. I was planning on getting the invites out before the show. Ran out of time. I will try and do it basically straight after the show. I am going to make it available to everybody, which is not part of the norm anymore, because there's layers of membership that get access. But I will make it, there will be a way that everyone can get access should you really want to come along and you're on one of those lower levels that doesn't have direct access. Other than that, I think, Chewy, we should just get into it. What are your thoughts?
Yes, I concur.
Well, listen, this one's not in the show notes, but I think we should definitely start with it because it's probably the biggest news story of the day, potentially the week. Remember I said last week that this story about if Fonterra had have indeed spent time with the Prime Minister's office and there was no information, and they're now saying one of my senior advisors had meetings and I knew nothing about it, could be one of the biggest more consequential stories of this calendar year. Well, we're finding out more about it, whānau. So let's just go straight to TVNZ News and pick up where they left off at 6 o'clock tonight.
Tēnā koutou katoa, good evening. The Prime Minister's office has revealed the senior staffer lobbied by Fonterra over climate change law received a briefing note through his private email address. No records of the meetings or
Chewy, you probably have some thoughts around private email addresses. Have we not heard that before with a particular government who then in opposition went mental over people using private email addresses? Has that ever been mentioned before?
So private email address, if that's how that information gained access to the Prime Minister's office, means it essentially can't be OI8.
Yeah.
It's not searchable. It's not publicly available. It's not on record. And this is a really devious way to get around this sort of stuff. Opposition can't ask for it. The public can't ask for it. Erica Stanford played this trick as well of using her personal email to do official work. Another wee trick that I've heard is you get your chief of staff to call someone and then just jump on the call. That means it doesn't need to go into the minister's diary. There is no reason to do this if you're being above board.
A really good line today, I think it was by old mate in Christchurch, Duncan in the house today. Something like, isn't it an interesting day when a lobby group is more transparent than the Prime Minister's office? Because we asked the question last week, why is Fonterra and Z Energy confirming all of this? And we'll push play now, but you'll see in the story, Fonterra basically says, this is not our business practice. We don't like doing it like this. We were requested to do it this way. So Fonterra, as ironic as it sounds, is showing honesty and integrity in this situation. Let's keep going.
Documents had been kept or disclosed until a court case against Fonterra and other emitters last month brought them to light. Sophie Trigger has the latest.
The Prime Minister today donning a high-vis vest to visit this building site after review.
You know, Chewy, when you're Prime Minister, can you please never attend a situation where you have to either wear a high-vis vest or a hat, an emergency hat, a hard hat? Because it never looks good, does it? No, not anybody. Just let's make that a rule. We don't get the Prime Minister to wear the hats and the high-vis vests. That's the rule from now on.
Not on camera. Certainly not on camera.
And certainly not keeping in them at the end of the tour to then do a press conference as well. That as well. Just get rid of them.
Do you think he keeps them? Do you think he has a dress-up box at home?
Maybe it's got his name on the back. the boss or something like that across the back.
Doing a development of his own.
I think Fonterra released it or made us aware of it on Friday, my office aware of it on Friday.
Discovering a Fonterra staff member had used the private email of someone in the Prime Minister's office to share a document lobbying the government to kill off a climate court case with a law change, which it did last month.
So for clarity, Fonterra, that email we're talking about, which was informing the government about you should change this law, went from Fonterra to a senior advisor's private email. So it would have come from a Fonterra official email to a Prime Ministerial Office unofficial email. That's the path we're looking at.
The question is, what are we doing about it? We're taking it really seriously.
I want to say this as well. We're taking it really seriously. We're going to watch Nicola Willis with Jack Tame. And a couple of times when Nicola Willis kind of gets caught out, she goes, well, I will take a look at that if that happens. It's the same vibe. Well, if that happens, well, we're taking this really seriously. Okay, we want to know details. What are you doing about it? Demonstrate to us, Mr. Prime Minister, you're taking it seriously, not just like words. How are you taking it seriously? What are you doing? Whose head is rolling? Because I can be sure as shit, if this was the leader of the Labour Party's prime ministerial office, you guys would be calling for blood and whose head needs to roll. So don't just tell us you're taking it seriously, demonstrate it. Later on, I'll say this again, Minister Willis, don't just say, well, if that happens, we'll take a look at it. Have a look at it now, because there are possibilities going on here you need to be aware of.
That includes a review launched by the Department of Internal Affairs, working with the PM staffer, revealed last week to be former Chief Policy Advisor Matt Burgess. Fonterra today issuing a statement to say the use of the personal email address was at his request and not appropriate or consistent with its policies.
This stinks to high heaven. It very much looks like the Prime Minister's office are actively trying to conceal the extent to which big businesses are influencing government policy.
This activist affected by that policy change believes there's more to explain.
You know, essentially the Prime Minister still hasn't answered the key question, which is what did he know about this lobbying and when did he know it?
Matt Burgess worked for the National Party in 2022. He became Luxon's Chief Policy Advisor in January 2024. In mid-2024, Burgess met with Fonterra and Z Energy and was given a hard copy of the document. But there were no records of that meeting or the papers handed over.
So that's another thing. Where is that file? So did Matt Burgess put that file in the backseat of his car, his personal car, and it went home with him? Because I would think a senior advisor to the Prime Minister with an official documentation from the largest company in New Zealand would make its way back to the Prime Minister's desk. Occam's razor would tell me that's the fewest number of assumptions to get to a conclusion, not biggest company in the country meets with senior advisor, gives them a hard copy of information. Senior advisor goes, nah, this is some nighttime reading for beside my bed. That's, to me, Chewy, a far less likely scenario. So where are the files? Show us the files, the Luxon files. Let's release the Luxon files.
He left Luxon's office in October last year.
There are a few people closer to the Prime Minister than the Prime Minister's Chief Policy Advisor. So I think it's implausible that the Prime Minister wasn't aware.
I am always impressed with people who can literally hold a conversation whilst sleeping at the same time. It's always a very good skill. I wish I could do that.
In some way of what was going on.
We need to build some guardrails around the undue influence of corporations into our political decision-making.
Everyday New Zealanders can't lobby the Prime Minister's office for a law change in their favour. Big corporations.
Bingo, Mr. Mowbray. Bingo, big business. Bingo, billionaires. Bingo, Fonterra. How many individuals, how many small companies, how many left-leaning ideologues can put a document into the hands of the Prime Minister's most senior advisor? Bingo. Chippy? Bingo. I'm going to go back a bit.
Minister's office for a law change in their favour. Big corporations can.
The Prime Minister saying he wasn't lobbied and National's position has never changed.
Many of us before the election felt strongly about this case.
Regardless, he acknowledges the use of personal email undermines trust and transparency.
Kia ora, Sophie.
What they're saying, Chewy, is they're saying, oh, we were always going to do this anyway. We were all talking about this well before we were elected, and we were going to do it anyway. I'd like to say I call bullshit on that. I guess that implies I'm 100% certain, but that feels disingenuous. That many people around the cabinet table were already talking about this, so that's just a coincidence, is what he's saying. He is literally actually saying it's just a coincidence.
By all accounts, the wording in the legislation as it happened was exactly the same as what this email suggested, to the point where it could have been written by Zed and Fonterra's own legal team. So this whole thing of like, oh yeah, no, it's what we thought anyway, so it's no big deal, just doesn't wash with me. Like, why, if that's how you feel, why is there an email at all? Why did it go through you? Like, none of this is plausible. None of this stacks up. And I think all the commentators that I see that are sort of just, what's the big deal? They're not getting the danger here. The danger of lobbyists having a revolving door access to the Prime Minister's office with zero accountability or fallback on who's actually writing legislation. Because, hey, here's a wee tip for people. You know how we vote? You know how we vote every 3 years? We
mostly
vote for our lawmakers, the people that make the laws. We're trusting them to make the laws and do the job. If what they're actually doing is just getting someone to print something off their personal Hotmail that someone else has written, where's our accountability on the work that gets done? Because there's no we can't go back and go, well, this is a weird piece of law. You wrote this, right? Maybe delete Gmail. It's not good. And I think this ties into a lot of things that we've talking about how infected this government is with lobbyists. The contact with big business and big donors, having literal lobbyists as MPs and lobbyists working on ministers' staff up to the Prime Minister's office is bad. It is bad for our democracy. It is bad for us remaining a country of low corruption. No, it is a big deal.
Yeah. And look, it's this will continue on. And we're not just going to chase this and continue to talk about it because it's the government and, we want to see a different government, let's say. If this goes, there's just still a couple of pretty big gaps. And like, honestly, one is what happened to the Luxon files. Like what happened to that hard copy. Fonterra has basically come out and say, look, honestly, guys, we didn't want to do it this way, but this is what happened. And that implies to me like a business basically putting their business out into the world like that. You're like this, there's my suspicions and my predictions are more is to come. Because it doesn't feel like the biggest company in New Zealand would basically throw the Prime Minister under the bus unless there's some stuff they really need to be clear about. Look, we've been honest since day one. Just feels that way. I guess we'll have to wait and see whether it's the case or not. Dirty, 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 dirty boys. That's all I can say, Chewy. Let's have a look at some super chats. Very generous. Thank you, Lucky Quizzer, for $34.99.
Oh, damn.
I'm hungry for politicians who actually answer questions and make their policies easier to understand. Too many parties make things harder than they need to be. We deserve accessible information. Appreciate your views, BHN. Yeah, look, and let me make this really clear because I was having a conversation with someone today about this. We are biased. Mea culpa. We have a political spectrum perspective that we run our ideologies through. Mea culpa. I've said for a long time and I'll say it again. I don't care about someone's bias. I don't care about someone's where their allegiances are as long as they're accurate. We're telling you a story about numbers, then we go number. opinion. And any group should be able to go number, accuracy, opinion at the end. Our opinions may not align with yours if you're from a different political spectrum, but we strive to be fair and we strive to be accurate, especially when we're giving out facts and figures and data. Make sense, Joey? You feel with that? Oh, okay. Junkrig Sailor says, apparently I haven't seen this. We got a Roy Morgan poll out. The Roy Morgan poll is nuts. Labor dropping 7.5. They are a good pollster too. So I don't know what to make of it. A few more polls like that and Chippy could be toast, wanting Kieran to step up. Haven't seen that. Have you seen that, Chewy? A Roy Morgan poll? I've been very, very busy today with things that the whānau knows about from a few weeks ago. But yes, my day has been filled with other things. And a 17-year-old having a birthday dinner tonight, which was lovely. Roast lamb. I haven't seen that. Have you seen that, Chewy? The 7.5 point drop in Roy Morgan? I haven't. Adam says, on today's poll, it's probably an outlier, but this should be a real wake-up call for Labor. Still not releasing any policy has not been a good idea. You still with me, Chewy? You've been very quiet. Yeah, maybe he's not. He's been really quiet, whānau. Is it just me? Which one of us have we lost? Better go look at the chat. See if it's me or if it's Chewy. Chewy is offline. Okay. Chewy. To me, he's a frozen image on the screen. He's being very quiet. XLDS says, Luxon as dirty as our, what? Oh, it's waterways. I thought for some reason you're going to say water boys. Waterways tainted by farmers. Well, it's a good match, isn't it? Mystery Stranger also says, I can only lobby PM if I pay $10,000 for a dinner. This is interesting. Pat, randomly saw you in a YouTube video today. R.M. Brown, Dave Rubin, Jubilee. Oh my God. If we have time, if you read the show notes and it says, we could talk about the dumbest person on the internet, that's Dave Rubin. We were going to talk about that today. Oh, so I wonder if we're featuring somewhere else because I interviewed Dave Rubin. And in that interview, this is where I met Sam Cedar. You guys who know us for a while know that Sam's sort of a friend of the show. Sam Cedar used my interview with Dave Rubin to point out that Dave Rubin had just identified Obamacare. So yeah. There was also a bunch of chat going on in here about donations and stuff. Sorry, I've lost all that now, guys, because when Chewy dropped out, I went to the front of the queue. Might be a good time just to say, if you want to know more about us, I've also got really bad asthma at the moment. And when I get asthma, I have a cough. It's called cough variant asthma. So you might see me turn off the microphone every now and again. I'm going to do right now and have a quick cough. Back again. On the website now, you can support us lots of ways. Of course, there is Patreon, and if you're on the Patreon vibe, you can also come along to a meetup this weekend. There are some people who get automatic access to the meetup. There are other people who will have the ability to come to the meetup, but you'll have to jump through a few hoops to get there. The other thing, though, I thought I should remind you about is the shop up and running. I'm going to shut the shop down probably on Wednesday because we're going on holiday off to Australia for 2 weeks on Monday, and I don't want the shop left open and you guys order things and then have to wait 3 weeks to get them. It would be bad. So you could probably order today and tomorrow, but I am going to shut it down and take it offline for the time we're away. I think that's the smartest thing. But also, I was just going to mention as well, there is a way somewhere, there it is up the top there, that you can donate as well directly. You can click on that and there's a way that you can do a straight donation. That comes to us through our Shopify, but it also means we don't pay like the 30% fee that you get going through YouTube and yada, yada, yada. But the unfortunate thing about it for you guys, unfortunately, is we don't get in to throw your lovely super chats up on the screen. So we don't mind doing that. It's all gravy. But if you wanted to do it that way and have a look, there's a donate button right up the top there and you can come in here and choose. You can put any amount you want. Like, I mean, I don't know how numbers work, but you can put like any amount in there you want. It can be anything, it can be like $1 or $2 and there's a thing that where it can go up, I think. Yeah, it looks like it can go up. I mean, like,
if I put a $10,000 donation in, would that mean that we could have a chat just once a month, say?
So that was supposed to be $25.76. I don't know quite how that happened. I apologise, whānau. Chewy, if you put in a $10,000 chat, I'll start talking to you outside the show. You know how at the moment I don't talk to you unless we're in this room? I might. So there you go. Someone, you probably missed it, Chewy. Someone just said in the chat that they saw me on a, and I've never heard of this guy, and person in the chat who said that, I apologize, I've already deleted. Is this the dude you're talking about? I don't know who this is. I don't know what he's about. It just said RM Brown. He looks like he's an interesting one. I don't know anything about him. Live streaming with Sammy, confronting Sam Seed of Earth is Ethan and Hassan. So someone says that I'm featured in one of those with the Dave Rubin stuff.
Oh,
but yeah, if we get a chance, I'm going to do some of that Dave Rubin stuff tonight because it's hilarious. In fact, it's so good that if we run out of time tonight, we'll do it tomorrow or something. Actually, Troy, before we just keep going, I'm just going to get these last two chats because they've come in now. Thank you. Listen, is the lack of policy only due to the budget? Look, it's a little bit of a red herring, whānau, and unfortunately, people are buying into it. They have released policy. We've shown. Can I ask you a question? Did you just take that down?
Yes, sorry,
okay.
I did.
No, because it went down before, and I was just wondering. No, it's fine. That came down before, and I was just wondering if there's a new automated thing, but that's all good. You can get rid of Lytton. I know you really don't want to see Lytton super chat, and that's fine with me. Just you explain it to Lytton. What was I saying? Oh, yeah, it's a lie, and don't buy into it. Right? I agree. There are some things they're going to have to wait for the budget, no question whatsoever. And we showed you this. Christopher Hipkins on New Zealand Herald listing all the things they had led. And the other thing is, remember, when National was in opposition, they didn't release any policy until July of that year. We're not even in July yet. Like all their big policies were all July and after. So just don't fall into the trap. I mean, I asked that of Chippy when we had him, only because I agree there are some things. But don't buy this thing about, no, there's been no policies. It's just not the case.
They haven't got any policy. And yes, I've seen people on the left repeating it and falling for it. I think I even replied to a comment just before everything shat itself. But yeah, there's surprisingly zero pushback about that. Of like, actually, there are a bunch of policies. Greens have put out some policy as well, but no one's going to do that until the budgets come out because you don't know what money you're working with.
And they have released policy. Look, what I'll do is I'll find the clip and I'll repost it where Chippy lists off about 9 or 10 things that they have identified so far this year. It's not true. Don't believe the hype. It's a sequel. No, the trope. Don't believe the trope. It's not true. Josephine, kia ora boys, koha for your awesome mahi. Thank you. And actually one more thing that's just come in. JC confirms the tax package was 30th of August. The pledge card was 3rd of September. The 100-point economic plan was 22nd of September. And there was also the one about the $250, the big thing, $250 a fortnight. That was in like September or October as well. So just don't buy into it.
Just chill out.
Don't buy into it. Just chill out. All right.
I think that the sole place that comes from, this narrative that National that have spun out, that they're not even telling you your policy, is they really want Labor to start talking tax. And I think Labor do want to start talking tax, but by not talking about it until they know what they're working with, it just give space to National that they have to make shit up. Like Labor's going to get attacked on tax anyway because that's what National does. So why make it easier for them?
Well, and just remember, National doesn't make policy. National responds to Labor policy. So of course National are talking about where's your policy because they have to get the Labor policy before they know what to respond to. That's what it's about. We're not going to look at this tonight, by the way. We will look at it tomorrow night. There you go. That was only out 3 hours ago. Roy Morgan, New Zealand poll, support for National-led government surges in May as Labor support falls.
This poll is cracked.
Well, I mean, what I always say is it'll either be a trend or an outlier, and we'll have to wait till the next one.
Those swings are too big.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Opposition, Labour support plunged 7.5% for 26.5. Support for the Greens increased 1.5. Te Pāti Māori was down to 2.5. I haven't done any looking into it. I'm only looking at that now based on you guys having brought it up. I'll look into it tomorrow. We'll have a squiz. We'll have a squiz, as my old mum used to say. All right, let's do Chippy, shall we? Just because I like this freeze frame, it's kind of hilarious. So Chippy was on New Zealand Herald this morning, and they were talking about a bunch of stuff, including the budget in general. Chippy was making it very clear that the budget was the last chance for National to sell their solutions, and was asked all about the health spend coming up as well. I might at the end of this go back to the start of this and play the introduction by the host, because she says something really clear and true. This is, I'm only really playing this clip because it comes up again with Nicola Willis, but levy on the banks, like the levy on the banks that Labor in part supports. I guess there's always the devil is in the detail, isn't it?
I'm wondering whether you could raise some more revenue by increasing that levy on the banks. It's only $200 million over 4 years. They make, like $10 billion in profit? Could you up that and raise some revenue?
Yes.
Well, we're going to scrutinise.
Yes. Here's the answer. Yes. Easy.
The bank levy closely. We're broadly supportive of the government's decision to do this. What we want to do is make sure that the extra cost doesn't just flow through into consumers. The banks have been making huge profits. We want to see them dipping into those profits to pay this levy, not just simply charging consumers, charging New Zealand households and businesses more so that they can continue to make huge profits, which really are hard to justify in the current economic climate.
This is the everlasting question. Where will they pay for it? Will they want to make, I think that they said on Q&A that there's $10 billion of profits or something like that. So what's 50 million? It's like, yeah, cool, that's fair. But will they want to make then 10 billion and 50 million in profit? Or will they then choose to make 9,950 million in profits? I'm not sure that's a very good answer. And it's true that they do get their profits from us. We are the banks. Cattle beasts, if you will. We make them their money. I'll just play this for you just to show you. This morning, New Zealand Herald, and I did say this to Chippy last week, I might have been the first to say it, that everyone's going to be asking them this question for the next several days, if not weeks. And of course, the Herald asked it.
Have you got a date for us when we might start seeing some policy so we can start talking about that rather than the hypothetical?
I just wish Chippy had done, what he did a couple of weeks ago and just go bang, 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 bang. But he's not. He's going, no, well, we'll look at, with some in July and June. And it's like,
that needs to be the consistent message.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have, here they are, and we will release more substantial policy about the same time as National did last time.
Yeah. And I do
wish,
how it works. I do wish that they had chosen to point out how late National, when they were in opposition, were leading it, because it's just like you're basically allowing the narrative to be what the national standards was. Remember how National Party brought in national standards for primary schools? The whole primary sector went, don't do this or you'll have 15-year-olds that can't read. 12 years later, when there was 15-year-olds that can't read, the National Party, the guys who brought it in, said, look how terrible Labor is at education. Look what the Labor-led government's education is doing for their 15-year-olds. And they sold the narrative, and I don't feel like Labor pushed back hard enough. I feel the same in this. You've allowed this narrative to be sold that you guys have no policy, and you need to put. I mean, it's too late now, but that pushback was great once, but also that idea about we've actually released more than National did in their last year of opposition. So what are you talking about? Just be flippant, like asked and answered. Get away from me. Anyway, to get to the end of this.
We'll have some more policy announcements in June, and you can expect to see policy fairly regularly from us now. Once we get through this next bit of number crunching, you can expect to see fairly regular policy from us now over the next few months.
I mean, it feels timid. It's almost like saying, it's coming, but whatever. We're not in that position, Chewy. Maybe we don't know anything. Right, here's the last one, Chewy, and I know you like to get your teeth into this. Old Hegseth, what's his name? Old Keg's Breath, as Kyle Klinsky calls him, Mr. Keg's Breath. deciding to tell the world another one of their good friends, one-time allies, are freeloaders. So Mr. Kegsbreath over in the US was basically saying that New Zealand's not pulling its weight when it comes to, wasn't NATO, was it? It was one of the groups they were talking about, at least anyway, and funding for it, and calling us freeloaders. Good question for Mr. Hipkins to address. He has been the Minister of Defence before.
I want to talk to you about the idea of New Zealand being a freeloader in the eyes of the Pacific in terms of our defence spending. What do you make of that?
That's just utter rubbish. New Zealand contributes enormously around the world. We judge our contribution, though, by the quality of what we contribute rather than how much money we spend. We don't judge our performance based on the number of tanks we buy. We judge our performance based on what we're contributing around the world.
Yeah, because he's basically saying, why are you spending more money buying more of our helicopters and stuff? We kind of are, but that's what they're calling freeloading, not giving enough money to America in the realm of defence.
What about this idea of a conversation about our nuclear-free status? It sort of seemed like the Minister was walking that back slightly this morning. He said, look, the policy's not changing, unofficially or officially, but a conversation would be useful. What's wrong with a conversation?
I have been very clear that under Labour, New Zealand will not be part of AUKUS, which is the nuclear-powered submarine pact that Australia has entered into, and we will not be changing our nuclear-free stance. Chris Penk has basically said out loud what this government have been thinking, which is if Australia gets nuclear submarines, they'll change New Zealand's law so that those nuclear submarines can visit New Zealand. That's a complete violation of what has been a long-standing, very principled nuclear-free policy by New Zealand. Under Labour, that will not change.
Lots has changed since the 80s though, right, Chris? So why not have the conversation and check that everyone still feels the same way?
Nuclear weapons and nuclear-powered ships are no less repulsive now than they were 40 years ago. Nuclear is not the answer.
Yeah, agreed. Solid sticking of the landing there. And we're going to show you in a second also we commentate on the commentators. The way that Heather Duplessis-Allen approached that question with the Prime Minister was slightly different this morning about freeloading. But sure, we kind of the defence world is sort of more your bag. Got any thoughts?
Yeah, I had some very strong and immediate thoughts when I first saw that story over the weekend. I'm just looking to see what I wrote, because sometimes you can't get lightning in a bottle twice. Yes, I said Pete Hegseth can go fuck himself. If he thinks we're freeloading, we should pull out of Five Eyes and cancel all the military procurement that's just been announced. This is why I'm not Prime Minister. But to turn around to one of your Five Eyes allies, the country that is quite helpfully passing you intelligence, and call us freeloaders, show them. Bring us closer to the country that you're most concerned about, the Pacific. Like this is it is ridiculous, and it just goes to show somehow you don't get great diplomacy statements from a former alcoholic Fox News commentator whose highest rank in the US military was, I think, captain in the National Guard. So, yeah, like this is like seeing Pink have to basically kick his little feet to keep his head above water trying to handle this. And he somehow fell on, we have to have a conversation about nuclear. Like, just the same as it was during the Cold War, if we're going to open ourselves up to nuclear armed, especially, but potentially nuclear powered vessels coming to New Zealand, that does nothing but make us a target. Like, we're better to pursue an independent foreign policy based on our own moral decisions rather than cuddling up to America, who, let's be honest, their record for supporting allies, supporting the rule of law, has taken an absolute fucking drubbing over the last 10 or 20 years. So maybe we can be a little bit more circumspect and go, hey, Pete, you don't set our policy. You don't set our defence spending. You can have your own private thoughts,
Really?
But when 3.5% of GDP? That's mental.
I mean, let's have a look as well. We're not playing this now. We're going to come back to it, but I just wanted to give you an understanding. So these two people, the reporter on the Herald and Heather du Plessis, are in the same building, right? They're all NZME. I just want to see if you can notice. I mean, it's probably hard to pick up on, Chewy. Like it's subtle, but reporter we just watched asked the question, "Are we freeloaders?" Heather du Plessis, it's 1% different.
Hey, we are freeloaders, aren't we?
No, absolutely not. And I sort of very strongly.
So that's the Newstalk ZB studio. Patriotism sitting on the right.
We've got our own independent foreign policy.
We are freeloaders.
And I'm actually damn proud of the fact that we're doubling our defence expenditure. It's been run.
We don't show that clip tonight because it's boring. But I just thought it was interesting to be able to see the difference. And I also want to show you, like I promised, the start of that conversation, if I can find it, because I have lost. There it is. Because the way the interview was started was the most on point part of the whole conversation. Let me just play the first 30 seconds where she basically repeats what Christopher Hipkins said about the budget.
A budget that's asking those with the least to make the biggest sacrifice. That was Labor's response after the government unveiled its budget on Thursday. Labor leaders.
Does anyone see a slight? There's like a slight. I mean, I know it's hard to tell, but a slight difference between her reporting and Heather du Plessis Allen. Just a tiny, it's hard to tell, but there's a slight difference between those two. It's weird, eh?
I'm just going to highlight a comment because I think it's good. If Hegseth wants to talk about who's freeloading off, I think his exact phrase was the generosity of the US taxpayer. Why is he even looking in our direction?
Yeah.
When he has a whole ass country that he could be talking to about freeloading off the US taxpayer. Is there some sort of difference? Like 3.5% of GDP, we don't have any immediate plans to invade anywhere, so I don't think that that's practical.
Thank you. Let's have a look at a few super chats. Pat, Chippy may have released all those policy he reckons he has, but none of it is landing. Then is it fair? I mean, but also it's a bit like. I mean, how do we do this in a delicate way? Parents who tell their kids they're dumb for long enough, whether the kid is dumb or not, they believe it. It's a repetitive thing that people can get in. It's quite harmful in that instance. So if the media keeps saying, when are you releasing the policies? There's no policies. When are you releasing? There's a chance of 80 to 90 to 95% of what people are hearing from the media is there are no policies, and the last 1 to 5% is the policies. Of course, they're not going to land. It's how it works, but it's still fair. John Craig, they're right. They're not landing. Arvid's Chippy is starting to sound a bit two-faced. Gold says freeloaders or just not willing to buy shit from terrorists. Yep, all fair. Chewy, our next topic, we're going back to a Newstalk ZB. Set the scene for us as to what Chris Pink has done, because Chippy has just said, Chris Pink has basically said, if Australia goes nuclear submarines, we will change the law to allow them into our waters. Now, pardon me, the beauty of that is you now have the Prime Minister defending our nuclear-free status. It's quite interesting to watch. Do you have anything to add to that?
Sorry, what was the question again? You cut out a little bit for me.
Sorry, I've got my asthma kicking in at the same time. Chris Pink saying that we're getting, or not we, if Chris Pink is telling us that if Australia gets nuclear-free submarines, we'll let them into our waters, which is a change of policy.
Oh, right.
Do you have anything to add to that? Because what's about to happen is his Prime Minister, the leader of the National Party, is about to basically bitch slap Chris Pink without using his name by defending the nuclear-free New Zealand that we are. And I'm telling you what, annoying a huge portion of his voter base in doing so. Any thoughts before we hit play?
So Chris Pink even talking about the New Zealand nuclear-free position is incredibly dumb. Now, do you remember a while back, there was a quote, I think it was from Brash at the time, that if they get onto power, then the nuclear-free policy would be gone by lunchtime? And
Yeah,
there
it
was
rings
such
a
a
bell.
strong reaction from the New Zealand public that basically ruled him out at that point. People didn't want it. They don't want it. There's no benefit to us. So for him to just trot that out, and it was always going to blow up in the commentary cycle. Like, I can see what he's saying. Are we going to turn around to our closest ally and say, you can't come in our waters? Now, there's two things about that. I think there's the diplomacy side of things, of like, you can't send your new nuclear armed submarines to New Zealand, to which Australia would go, yeah, sure. But they're also submarines. So if Australia decided to send them into New Zealand waters, they just don't tell us.
There is the question as well, and maybe it does get asked in this, and it's a logistical question as opposed to anything else. If for some reason a giant power decided they wanted to attack, and New Zealand was attacked because they took a left when they were supposed to take a right somewhere, because why would anyone? And we needed a defence force to come to our aid, no one's going to say no to nuclear-powered submarines if that ever was a reality. So there's the hypothetical, and then there's the real-world experience anyway. But it was quite surprising to hear Christopher Luxon sound like Jeanette Fitzsimons for about 2 minutes. Let's have a listen, shall we?
Now, Chris Pink is right, isn't he, that we're going to have to start talking about nuclear propulsion?
No, we're going to maintain our nuclear-free position. No, hear me out here, because essentially we've got a long-standing position from 87. It's across the political spectrum. All New Zealanders feel very strongly about the nuclear-free position. No, they do.
Yes,
they
we do.
And whether it's nuclear propulsion or nuclear armed, that's something that we're not up for and we won't be changing.
Have you not seen a shift in the polling?
No, I'm just saying I don't sense there's a massive call out for us to do that.
Don't you think, though, Chris, this is one of the nuttiest things that we've ever done as a country?
I actually think it's one of the best things.
Why? We can't even have nuclear power because we got weird.
Welcome, comrade, as Bomber would say.
God.
Yeah. I mean, don't worry so much about it. Yeah.
Well done to Luxon. There you go.
Yeah.
Clip this. Clip it. It's the only time it's going to fucking happen. Well done, Luxon.
Not finished. Let him get through it. Let him do his full green
you're right.
green spread in front of us all.
Might be a little bit too early. Good point.
I actually think it's one of the best things.
Why? We can't even have nuclear power because we got weird in the 80s.
We don't need nuclear power. We need to do a better job of having a
We got weird in the 80s, team. You know, that whole kind of fight to have a nuclear-free Pacific. We got weird. Rainbow Warrior being blown up. Mururoa Atoll. We got weird, Chewie. Not like we stood up to the world and we said to these superpowers, get the fuck out of our backyard. Oh, we got weird about it. Got a bit weird about it. Now we're suffering for it. Yeah. Yeah. Number one rated radio station in the country.
Does Heather, is she related to someone that was part of South Africa's secret nuclear program?
Maybe.
That's the only way that this makes sense.
Okay.
Strategy,
you're telling me our energy system is awesome.
No, it's not. But it's been badly run because when you go into oil and gas and when you don't actually do consenting for fast track for renewables, Chris, all that stuff, we've got heaps of ways to deliver energy.
It's fine to be opposed to nuclear weapons, right? Because nobody wants anybody to bomb each other with this stuff. But then get weird about propulsion and stuff. This is going to impact our relationship with the Australians when they get the nuke-powered subs.
No, look,
I can't send them over to...
I was there November 2023.
Are they going to send them over, Chris, to defend us? And we can go, no, please.
First and foremost, Heather, the Australian subs aren't arriving to the mid-2040s and they're going to be delivered through the 2050s and 2060s. You'll probably still be on the show, you know. You might have taken over from Mike Hosking officially there, but I think you'll probably keep going to 120. But no, I mean, the issue is, look, I'm really proud of our nuclear-free position and it ain't changing while I'm Prime Minister, period.
Honestly. Okay.
Cool. Good. Well done, Chris Luxon. You cleared this very standard level bar.
Did we find the one thing that if we get a return national-led government, that at least we know we're not going to start building nukes in New Zealand?
I mean, you can't trust them, but, you know, that seemed like a pretty clear-cut statement. There was a smattering of lies in there as well. Or we'll just go, oh, yeah, no, our power system's not great because it's been mismanaged or whatever. You guys did that. You did the privatization.
But there's a solution.
Of the gentailers and stuff like that.
There's a solution.
That's on you guys.
It's to bring a product into New Zealand that comes from a non-renewable kind of gas type stuff, and that would save us for about 10, 20 years, Joey. That's a solution. Easy. All right.
It's just, I want to talk about nuclear power.
Okay.
I want to talk about nuclear power. I don't know, because this is something that is always seems to be in Facebook comment sections of like, but nuclear power is good actually, and it's actually pretty green when all things considered. Like I've even seen that coal power plants put out more radioactivity than nuclear power plants. There's some very creative accounting going there. Look, nuclear power can be very clean, but it is not the right thing for New Zealand for a bunch of reasons. We would have to spend tens of billions of dollars to build the infrastructure and secure the fuel and the waste containment. And we would have to spend decades training up the people to run it. And then we'd have to find a place to put it in New Zealand as far away from a fucking fault line as possible. And people seem to bring up like, oh, the Japanese have lots of nuclear power plants. They did. And then Fukushima happened. And sure, it wasn't as bad as it could have been, but it was still pretty bad.
I think it comes down to if it's going to go wrong. If something's going to go wrong, if you're thinking about failure points, the failure point on a hydro dam is probably safer in general than a failure point on a nuclear power plant. I mean, if you live in Clyde, I'd be concerned about a failure point on a dam. But you know what I mean? In general, it's not going to perhaps kill Chernobyl. We're not going to kill the area around you for the next 1,000 years and have a whole bunch of cancers coming out of there. So there's that. Because, I mean, there is debate.
Solar.
There's a guy called Michael Moore who used to be a part of Greenpeace. He's pretty disavowed now, but he, as Greenpeace in the 70s, was out against nuclear, and then sort of in the 80s turned and said, well, to be honest, if we wanted to have a clean, ever long-lasting energy source, nuclear is probably the only option. But I think all of this New Zealand is bullshit. We are hydro and geothermal and wind. We are one of the richest countries in the world in those three, certainly per capita, which is what you need when you're thinking about a power grid. And we don't need to be looking at anything else. If we are going to chill, you just pick the figure $10 billion. What could that do in the renewable space where we can build those things to be renewable, ongoing, forever?
Like the conversation in Australia about nuclear is really interesting. So Australia has a nuclear reactor. It's used for research. I think it's part of one of the universities, but they do have a reactor. This is a country that has a massive amount of land, has its own uranium, is geologically stable, and they haven't pulled the trigger on a nuclear reactor. And they probably won't at this point because they've got solar and batteries coming out their ass to the point where they actually pay people to use power on sunny days. That's what we should be aiming for. Sure, it's not flashy and sci-fi like a nuclear reactor, but I'm sorry, pulling energy from the fucking sun and the wind is about as sci-fi as we want to go. And none of that poisons the land if a wind turbine falls over or an earthquake happens. In fact, home solar on the roof makes the whole country more resilient for power generation in the event of a disaster. Talking about nuclear in New Zealand makes no sense, and it makes me crazy.
I can't remember which MP it was. I'm assuming it was one of the Greens. Make the very clear point. You never see sunshine get stuck in the Strait of Hormuz. It just makes its way through to, so. All right, let's get on to the next bit, because the next bit is talking about entitlements. There is, when the right-leaning, right conservative commentators pick up on issues that they want to have a crack, you know it must be really, really bad. So they talk about Andy Foster in this conversation. And Mr. Luxon basically has to defend him. Let's have a listen.
What are you going to do about Andy Foster rorting the accommodation allowance?
He's not in my caucus, Andy Foster.
Yeah, but he's in your parliament, and I think thank God for that. And you are in charge of the rules. He's a nice guy. He's an ideas man. But sorry, is he though?
He's an ideas man, Chewie. You dug a hole, Dad.
What's that?
Is he an ideas man? Is he?
Well, he's very furtive in the select committees. He's got lots of ideas. He's
well, he had a really great
makes
idea
contribution.
about how to rip us off with his accommodation allowance. So what are we doing about this?
Well, I'm not aware of what his personal circumstances are.
Christopher, we were talking about this last week. I find it highly unlikely that someone has not informed you that someone in your government is taking $1,000 a week to live in their home that they've owned for 30 years in Wellington. I don't find it credible that you don't know this. I don't.
Accommodation allowance. So what are we doing about this?
Well, I'm not aware of what his personal circumstances are. I know the broader issue about remuneration and...
But hold on, have you not read up on this? Do you need me to tell you about
No,
this?
I'm a little bit aware of what he's done with his
So
salary.
he was living
Yeah.
in Wellington in his
Yeah.
house in Karori for 26 years.
Yeah.
And now he's moved over, he's bought himself a batch in the Wairarapa and he's moved there. That's his family home now. So now he's taking $1,000 or whatever it is, however much, to live in his house in Wellington as an out-of-town MP.
And the problem Mr. Luxon's going to face here, Chewy, is the Prime Minister was entitled to his entitlements, and so he took it. And my friends, the fish rots from the head. So the Prime Minister can't say anything about this. It's not exactly the same circumstance, but the Prime Minister didn't break any rules, didn't break any laws, but was part of the "you're taking the piss" ministry, Chewy, by taking $1,000 a week to live in an apartment that he owned and had no mortgage on. The fish rots from the head.
In fairness, I don't know the circumstances exactly, so I just can't comment on that. If it was in my own caucus, I could comment on that because I'd have more information.
Do you not think, though,
I'd put that to Winston. You should ask Winston.
Don't you think that you need to have another look at the rules?
The bigger issue I'd just say is take a step back.
I think we've already figured this out for you as well. It's a reimbursement, not an allowance. Problem solved. If you don't have a mortgage, you're not going to be paying a mortgage. You're going to have nothing to reimburse. I think that's the solution.
If you look at other countries around the world, they have like these massive, complicated, look at Australia, they're going through this massive issue at the moment, right, with all these allowances and entitlements that are much broader than what we ever get in New Zealand. I honestly think it's the best answer is to put it with the Independent Remuneration Authority. When you have politicians, we saw it in New Zealand, you freeze salaries. You go, okay, that sounds like a good idea today. We'll freeze salaries. 6 years from now, you get what we saw, a massive increase because people have been out of whack and it haven't kept pace with market rates. And so the independent...
But so what? So maybe that means as you freeze salaries now when we can't afford it, and in 6 years' time, when times are better, and there's more revenue around, they get a big increase. What's the problem here? What problem are we solving?
I don't know why this fucking glutinous man in a blue suit hasn't worked out that maybe you should tie politicians' remuneration to their KPIs. Like, is the economy going well? Oh, it's not. Okay, no pay rise.
Yeah.
Is the average wage going up? Or like it used to be, is it indexed to what teachers get?
Yeah.
Because that was a good system.
It was a good system. Right, this has only got 15 seconds. Let's just get to the end of it.
A massive increase because people have been out of whack and it haven't kept pace with market rates. And so the independent...
You're still in charge of them.
Yeah, but sure. But the question is, I think it's actually better to be at an arm's length. I know it's easy for a politician to get involved. You just don't want politicians involved in any of that stuff.
I kind of agree on some level with that, but this is not the solution. The solution is that, we just get to take the piss because that's basically the answer.
I agree with some of what he says. Like one of the things that we have here in New Zealand is having the government and ministers at arm's length with the organisation that decides their pay is on the whole a good thing. But I think if you want to come to the public and go, hey, look, times are tough and the economy's fucked and we just want to shit on poor people, disabled people, ethnic communities, this, that, and the other thing, you're all going to have to tighten your fucking belts and we're also not helping you with anything, which is what this government has essentially done. It's a mission statement at this point. It is terrible politics. It is terrible optics to go, this is, however, the right time to give us a pay rise. How can you justify that? Like, it's fine for him. He apparently doesn't care about how much
he's sorted
because he's sorted. He's independently wealthy. He'd do it for free, I'm sure. He donates his pay to charities that you can't see, and you can't OIA without them being heavily redacted. And he's also not going to take the absolute political gimme that's sitting on the table right there to go, yes, we need to look at some of the perks packages. It's obviously not working as intended. And if he did that, he would take that messaging away from the opposition in the run-up to an election, which is just such a layup opportunity that he has just fumbled the bag because Piggy got his nose in the trough.
Yeah. Yep. I think that's about it. XL Deer says solar punk, not cyberpunk, should be our future. Hey, I see what you did there. I like that. See what you did there. Chewy, I've got a bit of a tangent for us before we go into our last story.
You've got a tangent. You're taking us off mission. All right.
Well,
I'm down.
So there is an American commentator by the name of Dave Rubin. This is Dave Rubin. Dave Rubin used to be involved with the Young Turks, TYT. Dave Rubin famously left the Young Turks and went and started to do his own thing. Dave Rubin is a huge Zionist. As you can probably see, half of those photos are from Israel.
Dear.
And Dave Rubin is a gay married man with surrogate children. And it was only when people at the Blaze and other conservative right-wing things realised, that he was a gay married man adopting children from surrogacy, that they all turned on him and ran away from him. So he is a shadow of his former self when it comes to his, what's the right word? His cut through in media. And his classic line for the past kind of 10 years is, I didn't leave the left left me.
Right.
Describing himself as a classical liberal. Right, background, he was on Jubilee in this latest episode. Being very clear, I wanted to say to people, I always tell you to use the question, what's your metric for that? You've heard me say this, Chewy. I've said it 100 times. So what's your metric for that claim? We were talking about Parker Get a Job just the other day, who's a young, not millennial, Zennial, a Zen person, a Channel Z person. And he pops up on this Jubilee and asks the perfect question of Dave Rubin. Remember, Fano, we say it all the time. What's your metric for making that claim? Here we go. Parker, get a job.
Hi, how are you? All right, good. What is one main metric that Donald Trump has made better off since he got in office? So, like, an example would be GDP, unemployment, inflation, etc.
Well, we'll go back. So the prompt is, and he gets to, and remember, Dave Rubin gets to make the prompt. The prompt is, if you still vote for Democrats in 2026, you're voting for broken cities, broken schools, and broken borders. That's the prompt that Dave Rubin has chosen to go up against these people. Parker has just asked him about his metric to say Trump's doing a better job. What's your metric for that?
Better off since he got in office. So, like, an example would be GDP, unemployment, inflation, etc.
Well, right now, first off, the big beautiful bill was just passed last year and it's kicking in now, right? It's kicking in now. Okay? So,
literally laughing at him. This group of 20-somethings around him, literally laughing at him. He's the guest. He's chosen the prompts. What's the metric? Laughing at him.
So we're going to now see results of that, like even the tariffs. All right, so let's do tariffs. Are you for or against tariffs?
Against the universal tariff. So what's the main metric that he made better off?
What?
What's the main metric that he made better off? GDP, unemployment, inflation? Do you have any idea?
Listen.
I don't think you do.
Do you think, hold on. So you're arguing that things economically were better under Joe Biden
At the end of his administration, absolutely.
Yeah. So can you give me an example of how?
Yeah, GDP growth was better off. Real median wage growth was better off. Inflation was better off at the end of his administration. Unemployment was better off at the end of his administration. We had the worst year of job growth in the past 4 years, just this last year under Trump's administration. The inflation, 3.8% year over year since Trump got in office. We're seeing all of those economic indicators become worse off. Can you tell me anything that he's done to make it better off? You say it's broken for Democrats. It sounds like it's broken right now under Trump.
Have you looked at the stock market?
It's worse off in terms of growth in 2025 as compared to 2024. If you look at Dow Jones and S&P 500,
they're both up quite a bit right now.
But lower rate.
This is his analysis. They're both up quite a bit right now. Something that doesn't come up in this, Chewy, which I learned the other day. Stock market at the moment is inflated based on 6 AI companies. Like if it wasn't for those 6 AI companies, it would be underperforming. It all disappears. And when they burst that bubble, you watch what's going to happen.
Doing quite well. You know, things don't happen overnight. So Donald Trump, for example, things don't. That's true. That's true. There's reality. There's actual reality. Like you put policies into place and they don't just kick in the next day, right?
Well, Donald Trump, in a year and a half.
Donald Trump said when the tariffs.
He said in a year, prices would be down 50% for electricity. Are they up right now?
Hold on. Donald Trump, when he brought in the whole idea of tariffs, would you agree that for the last 4 decades, we have had completely lopsided trade deals.
Anyway, and it goes on, Joey. He's about to try and so Parker Get a Job absolutely nailed him. And as I said, when I first met Sam Cedar, he discovered an interview that I'd done with Dave Rubin. And in my interview with Dave Rubin, I told him about our healthcare system. I'd basically explained our healthcare system. And I said, why is your system better than ours? Because, you know, the Americans always say, and I explained, like I actually went down to the chemist and pharmacy and I got some drugs and, you know, it was all free. I didn't pay anything. My mum, I explained about my mum passing away from motor neuron disease. She had a bed from Germany and a chair from Japan, didn't pay anything, no bill. You know, if I walk out the thing and I fall over and I break my ankle, I go to A&E, I walk out, no bill. Well, I hop out, no bill. And so I'm trying to say to him, so tell me why your health system is better than ours. And I'm just going to play you 15 or 20 seconds of this and you'll see Sam up in the top right-hand corner commentate on it because he picked up on this video as well.
Again, I want to give people as much choice as possible, but I view the health insurance thing as something like this. You pick probably 10, handful of private insurance companies. They all compete for services and prices, so you're hopefully keeping the costs down. Then you get the government to come in, and if they can figure out a way to subsidize some of the products or help some of the doctors or drive down those costs a little bit. And I know this is where my libertarians friends will say, hey, once you get the government involved, you've actually just inflated everything. But I think there is some way to do something that's part private and part public.
I
don't think
right there. Ladies and gentlemen, Dave Rubin has just discovered the Affordable Care Act.
So
wherein
Dave Rubin was describing back to me Obamacare, which he rallies against. And so that's why you're getting headlines like this today because of Jubilee. The MAGA host is fighting for his life after a viral video earned him the dubious new honor of dumbest man on the internet. MAGA host mocked after failing to name any of Trump's achievements. I just wanted to say to you one more time, Fano, I'm sure you enjoyed it, but it's the best and perfect, and I've said it 100 times and I'll say it 100 more. When somebody wants to have an argument with you, what is your metric to measure that claim by? Parker Get a Job did it beautifully. Mwah! Chef's kiss. And Chewy, that is how you do a tangent.
That's pretty good. It's almost like you planned it.
Almost.
I do have a question, and it has been echoed in the chat. We're now an hour and 10 minutes into the show.
Yeah.
How are we going to fit in the entirety of Sunday's Q&A?
Well, I've got 3 clips to show.
For a total of 32 minutes? Is it the whole thing?
It's not the whole thing.
Because it's the bloodbath.
Well,
I want to see some blood sport.
Well, we're going to show a couple of really interesting ones. We're going to talk about cuts causing human misery and how much child poverty costs New Zealand.
The other thing I'd say is like, we're talking about the Young Turks. That was, like, when they were around and I guess relevant, they were like the hot new thing in
2015.
In the American
2015.
left.
Bernie
the hot
pushing
new
through.
thing in the American left. And then they're all turned into demons. What happened?
I think as unfortunate as it sounds. See, the good thing, Chewy, is I'm already old. But some people, they start off as ideologues and idealists in their 20s and 30s. And by the time they're in their 40s and 50s, they're like, I'd like to buy a house and there's no money on the left. And then they kind of go, meh. And, you know, Anna Kasparian at the moment, of course, she has her things to do with the trans community and being completely offended by terms like birthing person and that kind of stuff. And I think there is this saying out there that if you're not liberal when you're young, you've got no heart. If you're not conservative when you're old, you've got no brain. Now, I don't agree with that. But you know what the truth in that is. I think the truth in that is every generation that follows becomes more liberal, becomes more progressive, becomes more left. So in other words, to a Generation Z, a Generation X looks like a boomer, you know. And I just think that's how it works. And so these guys they've pushed the progressive barrow for a long time, young TYT that is, and they've probably got to a point where they're also media personalities realizing that it's actually really interesting because the left in America in the media scape, the independent, has been struggling a bit in the last 5 or 6 years. It seems to be going back the other way now. There's a real renaissance in it. But during that time where it was struggling, they seemed to make a conscious decision to be a bit more centristy. And so everyone turned away from them. And I think that's the thing. If you basically build an audience and then shit on them with new positions, everyone moves, right? Everyone is malleable. Everyone slightly changes and alters. But where you move to is kind of the opposite from where you were, then your audience is going to run.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people in chat saying, "Hey, look, I'm 63 and I'm more leftist than I've ever been. I myself am 46 this year, and I have a YouTube playlist of how to neutralize tear gas and what sort of arrows go through police shields, those sort of things. You know, just the same YouTube playlist that anybody has." I'm definitely not going to be able to get into America again.
No. Well, did you see actually? Speaking of, perfect segue. Cenk Uygur from the Young Turks, and I think Hassan as well, both got banned from entering the UK. And I watched a short clip with Cenk because I came across my algorithm in the weekend, and he said the only thing that he can see is because he has criticised Israel. And so because of that, they've labelled him anti-Semitic, and he can't even get into the UK. The UK has blocked him. Now, look, we can go back to criticising Cenk and Anna, or we can now go, he's this person, forget who they are, who have views contrary to a Zionist's approval, and that seems to be the reason he can't get into the UK. I mean, you went to the UK not long ago. Would there be any concern if you went this time? Has something changed over there?
I certainly don't have the same profile as those guys do, and I think that, honestly, that's the only difference.
Yeah, maybe.
Like, if we were a bigger...
Are you saying we're bigger? Are you saying we're bigger and so they're not going to fuck with us because they're much bigger? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. They're scared of the heat that I will bring on the UK government.
Yep.
Obviously. What else could it be, Pat? But yeah, I mean, it's a strange thing. Like, when you have heads, commentators, political influencers try to come here with some pretty abhorrent views, and we've gone, no thanks.
Yeah.
And often we'll follow Australia doing it and that sort of thing. And I think a country should always have, I guess, the right to sort of say, hey, look, we don't want you coming in and upsetting the apple cart in our society. And we can also stand here and criticise it when they get it wrong. Like, I think the UK has completely fumbled how to deal with what's happening in Israel and Gaza. And I think the UK has a long and troubling history on it, how it deals with, like, they're responsible for Zionism. It's their idea. They started it. They fucked up that entire part of the world by drawing random lines on a map. And now the only way that they can fix it is by arresting disabled people in wheelchairs, elderly nuns, and trying to not let people into the country that say that maybe Israel has gone too far. It's a weird position to be in, but it's through nobody else's fault but their own.
Yeah, it does make it is particularly interesting. I mean, to think that, like, for a long time, some of the most ardent, most hardcore Zionists would literally, not basically, would literally say, yes, being anti-Israel is anti-Semitic, which is obviously just the definition of idiocy to make that statement, to be critical of a government versus being critical of a faith-based position people are having. Not even critical, but to be basically racist towards it in a religious sense. That would be the difference. But it does make me think, you know, where is the world going to if the UK has done that? It's just, and I know what you're saying of the history of and what, etc. But that's like, it feels like not just Israel's influence, but the right's influence in America, because that's heavily also in that same world of, if you're anti-Israel, you're you're an anti-Semite. And how much of the right in America is then influencing what's happening in the UK as well? I mean, remember that America sneezes and the world catches a cold. So,
and look, there is a significant portion of Jewish people who are anti-Zionist. Being Jewish doesn't mean that you're a Zionist. Being Zionist doesn't mean that you're Jewish. These are two separate things. And what Zionists want to happen is them not to be separate things. At least when Zionism's being criticized.
Yeah.
Like, it's, I have had several conversations with Jewish New Zealanders that they're like, well, because this has given a lot of oxygen to people that do hate Jewish people.
I've
to
been
sort of
having
go,
this...
now I can say the words, I can say I hate Israel and it's fine. I've been saying I hate Israel for ages. Nobody's questioning me on why I hate Israel.
I had this very thought. I mean, like, I know we don't need to educate ourselves with this, but it's like there needs to be a really clear line of demarcation. And let's just talk about racism instead of anti-Semitism. But if someone has an opinion based on a person in Parliament who is not white because of their policies, cool. Because that's all that matters is the policies. If someone has an opinion that aligns with the person who is about their policy, but the reason they have that criticism is because of the color of their skin, that's a problem. It's also a problem, and we haven't said this for a long time because it hasn't been that relevant recently. You know, the other thing with Dave Rubin, and I saw this again over the weekend, is he was one of the guys who was involved with the tenant media Russia payments. And the thing that also is, I think it's really important as creators and stuff to go, who is consuming us and why? Now, if people are consuming us because we are, let's not say us, a content creator because they are ardently anti-melanin in the skin, and that's the reason, then that's a problem. If you're looking at, for example, the example we always use was Posey Parker. I mean, Nazis, actual Nazis, let's not get into the debate, would turn up to her protests to support her message. Why do Nazis want to support that message? Why does Russia want to funnel money to Dave Rubin and Tim Pool? Tim Pool and Dave Rubin weren't involved with taking money from the Kremlin, but the Kremlin was funneling money to those to support and amplify the words they're saying. If the Kremlin was funneling us money, even if we didn't set up an arrangement with them, but it was for an intermediary and we didn't know, the first thing I'd be doing is, why the hell does Russia want to support our message? What's wrong with our message? And they don't seem to do that. Like, I think it's important to always think about who supports you and why. And that is a reflectant on who you're trying to get. I mean, the most attractive, sexiest, tallest, most gorgeous people support us for obvious reasons. You're not going to get many people who think all those horrible things and want all those horrible things who are also, you know, into BHN. We know that. It says to me that the messages that we're putting out there are aligning with the right people, which means they're probably the right messages. Anyway, hey, I found this clip. Before we get off this, someone sent it to me, Magenta actually. Credit where credit's due. Shall I see what this dude had to say? This thing. This is he was talking about Dave Rubin as well. Just out of I haven't seen this. Would you have a look?
Look at this. I searched for this. There's like one video of him talking about this with a guy from New Zealand, and he's basically like, I don't know. It seems good, but I have a different thing.
What's wrong with my healthcare in New Zealand? The US doesn't want healthcare like the rest of the Western world. Where have we got it wrong, and you guys got it right?
Right. So I will be completely honest with you. I don't know about your healthcare system enough, the New Zealand healthcare system
Look it up.
specifically. But if you mean broadly, you mean socialized healthcare. They all compete for services and prices, so you're hopefully keeping the costs down. Then you get the government to come in, and if they can figure out a way to subsidize some of the products or help some of the doctors or drive down those costs a little bit. And I know this is where my libertarians friends will say, hey, once you get the government involved, you've actually just inflated everything. But I think there is some way to do something that's part.
They cut out a bit in the middle. They cut out the bit that I was talking about what our healthcare was, like that, like thing I said before about if I break my ankle, it's free. That was obviously cut during that scale down.
Private and part public.
I think.
I don't think we've perfected. Well, we certainly haven't perfected.
It seems to me for someone with.
Or, I don't know. If I were there, I would be like, I don't know. I was looking through your videos, and you're really upset and worked up. You're worked up in your little pants, your little khakis, about Zoran Mamdani. And you could be like, I don't know, one of the things he wants to do is go after, the worst, basically criminal landlords who have, huge...
Anyway, we're going to have a look at that later on. I'll look at that for myself. Well, there you go. That was interesting to say he searched for that. And there's only one interview where he talks about it, and it's this guy. All right. Should we get on to the feature meal, the main course?
The main event.
Stop. He's already dead. That was Parker Get a Job. Thank you, XL Dear. Parker and Dean Withers both have good YouTube channels. Yeah, I watch, Dean pops up on my TikTok feed, actually. I watch them every now and again, have them on in the background. Russia do it, destabilize civil order. E. Grant Wright. Thank you, team. Right. Now, Chewy, you said to me why we've got a full 32 minutes. I've got 3 clips. And I've got 3 clips because, I've got 4 clips, but I don't know if I'll do that one.
Look at that face.
Yeah.
She's in danger. The other thing I want to stay here before you play that, if I said the sound effect.
Sorry, I'm just going to, that's quite a good one. Pat now want to watch this. So I can't go to America.
The Roblox death noise. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I do not.
Like it's the sound effect you see all the time is like someone go oof. That's the sound effect that was playing in my head, maybe alternating with the sound that Pac-Man makes when he dies. That was just running through my head. The whole time watching this interview, the whole thing is a bloodbath.
Well, we're gonna. I guess the point that you're making, Chewy, is we could show this at any point and then continue it through. We're going to pull out 3. I've actually got 4 of them, but I think we'll just do 3 of them because one of them is about the banking levies, which we've sort of talked about tonight. This is very short, actually. There's only 45 seconds, but it was pretty clear. I found this clip to be nasty and vindictive. How Nicola Willis talks about people who work versus people who are on a benefit. It just feels like othering and dehumanizing to me people who aren't workers, because there's like anyone who's got a full-time job works and what you hear is that angelic sound when they walk through the door. That's a worker, according to these guys. It's the opposite if you're on a benefit. And it's only 45 seconds, but Jack was talking about who feels the pain of the increases in fuel. And let's just play a bit of this.
Isn't the pain most acute for people on benefits?
Well, they automatically get an adjustment to their benefit for inflation, unlike
not right now, though, right?
But they had one in April.
Sure, but since April, I mean, fuel prices have remained high for some time now, and
fuel prices have increased. So what they're saying is they've got that in April, but fuel prices have increased high, and that the increase that beneficiaries would have been based on the previous 12 months, not on what's happened in the last 2 months. And those who are struggling the most with fuel costs are beneficiaries and the poorest.
seen the full impacts of that reflected in the CPI yet. So they wouldn't have had an increase that will meet the increase in the cost of
Well,
fuel.
philosophically, our government believes that encouraging people into work and rewarding those who work is a very important principle for our overall tax and welfare system. And the last government structurally increased benefits significantly. They're now a lot closer to where a low-income worker would be, and we don't want to perpetuate that smaller gap, because we want people who are working, getting up each day to making that sacrifice, to know that they're better off than if they were on a benefit.
So they're not. I mean, someone on a benefit getting $400 a week, that's 20 grand a year. Minimum wage is about $48,000 a year. They're not.
Yeah, it's
getting
not
close.
even close.
No. They might be getting close to a low income worker who's working part time, and I know you want to throw those stats in there, but just the idea of we want to reward workers. Therefore, the only logical equal and opposite to that is we want to punish beneficiaries. Because even if you do nothing for the beneficiaries and costs are increasing, you're punishing them because you want to reward workers. Chewy.
There is so much here. She just is 100% painting the thing of, if you were on a benefit, you have made that choice, right? You're choosing not to go out and get a job because there's jobs for everyone. We know that that's not true. They've put thousands of people out of jobs in the last couple of weeks, and businesses are going up against the wall at a faster rate than even during COVID. So there aren't the jobs out there. Even if we were talking about all the people on JobSeeker being able to work, which is not true. JobSeeker includes people who are unable to work because they're sick, because there's something that prevents them from getting work, but because they want to fiddle with the optics of beneficiaries and that sort of thing, they're all on JobSeeker. That's what this government did. It is just cruel to put sickness beneficiaries on something called JobSeeker and then run your mouth constantly in the media and paint everybody on a benefit as just someone who wants to stay at home and play PlayStation, because there's fuck all difference between being on a job seeker and being employed. Like, there are people out there that are so desperate to get off job seeker, they are working 3 part-time jobs.
Yeah.
Or their kids are working a part-time job outside of school to support the household. This sort of right-wing narrative about, Reagan did it, for fuck's sake. Welfare queens, people that were just having babies so they could get more benefit. That is exactly the pull that Nicola is pulling from here, and it is bullshit.
And I mean, like, not to agree with her terminology, but if she was going to be, wanting to reward workers, you would think that the person you'd want to reward most of all would be the unemployed who are currently looking for work, because surely looking for work is a job. And then I don't know if you've ever been on the unemployed benefit law. Like, I remember being there when I was like at the end of a university. I had to work for a company that then went bankrupt, a computer company, and you always take the adage that if you're looking for a job, the job is the job. So actually you are working, you're working to get a job, but according to their, parameters for around who they want to reward, it's not the people who are looking for a job, 40 hours a week spending looking for work. It's only the ones who have got the work. They're the ones that we're going to reward. The rest are all, well, you just said it, Chewy, welfare queens. The rest all need to be the opposite of rewarded, which is punished.
I mean, I said this when they started rolling out these policies when they came into government, that they were going to set the tone at a time of record employment, that they were going to tighten up all of these things. Like, they're going to put in sanctions, and they're going to toughen up checking people who are applying for jobs and taking benefits off people and all of that sort of thing. And then they were going to choose actions that would cause more unemployment. They were going to set the machine to mince as many people as possible and make it as hard and mean as possible. And then they were going to stuff New Zealanders into that machines. They were going to remove apprenticeship programs that would get people into study or upskilling or changing industries and that sort of thing. They were going to make all of that go away, because for the top end of town, they want a panicked workforce that isn't going to rock the boat and ask for better wages, please. Things seem to be going quite well.
Right, we'll move into the next conversation, but before we do, I just want to talk about the bank levies, because we're not going to show that clip. Nicola Willis was very keen to let people know that we being the government, don't want the banks to pass on these levies, because it's less than 1% of their profits, right? And I'm unfortunately, this didn't quite come out from Jack, but I think everyone who thinks that is missing the point, because what the minister is saying is the increase in levies, i.e. taxes. Oh, sorry, no new taxes, so it must be a levy. I think Jack even called it the bank taxes, and she never corrected him. If you believe that these are very, very small proportionally for the banks to pay, then the reality is they're very, very small proportionally for the end user to pay. Because if they're just 1% of the profits, then they're probably only going to add on 1% to the bank user. And you can argue exactly the opposite. Well, the end user won't notice it, says the banks, because it's less than 1% total and we'll cover our costs. The government seem to be using this as a signal for it'll be fine, the banks won't pass it on because it's less than 1%. But what's going to happen is the banks are going to go, oh, we'll be fine to pass it on because it's less than 1%. And that's what's going to happen. And I'm not saying tell Jack how to do his job. He's 1,000 times better than us at this.
He's pretty
but,
good.
He's pretty good. He didn't spin it back to her and go, yeah, but if it's such a small cost, then the end user's not going to see it in their banking fees. If you're paying, I don't know, $20, $10 a month for banking fees, what's that going to be? 10 cents. It's going to be $10.10. You're not going to notice it. It's the same. So they'll pass it on. Of course, they'll pass it on. Anyway, the next that was a clip we're not gonna look at, but I wanted to mention that. Nicola Willis, I have to say as well, her aura, her presence during this, and I'm not saying this to take the piss.
It's a shitty brown aura, isn't it?
Well, I genuinely am not going to take the piss. Like, we joked around about the ghost of Ruth Richardson, yada yada yada, but honestly, the aura and the vibes around this. And maybe it's because of my bias. Maybe it's because we've joked about it. She was evoking Ruth Richardson. Like, all I could see was the way she was speaking, the things she was saying. I was just like, this is Ruth Richardson 2.0. Not just in what she's doing, but even how she's talking about what she's doing. It was quite surreal. But, we're going to see her softer side right now as she talks about if you bring too many cuts, Chewy, cuts actually cause human misery. So, why would we bring cuts? Because they cause human misery, says Nicola Willis.
In December, at the last big economic and fiscal update, Finance Minister Nicola Willis defended herself against critics of the government's spending and borrowing record. Do you remember the term you used? It was evocative. You said that further spending cuts risked human misery. Since that update, you've cut billions in forecast borrowing and spending. You've promised to cut thousands of jobs. So what's changed? Has your tolerance for misery increased?
Good question.
No, it hasn't. And actually, this budget forecasts 220,000 new jobs being created.
Well, speaking of, you're talking about the population dynamics before.
This was brought up last week, yeah, and Jack's straight into it. That 220,000 new jobs has nothing to do with this government. It's purely based on population increase, and Jack is straight in there.
New jobs being created.
Well, speaking of, you're talking about the population dynamics before. I've gone and compared
that with new jobs being created.
Yeah, but the vast majority is just population growth, though, isn't it?
But it puts in context the reductions that we're expecting to see in the core public service.
I don't know if you noticed, Chewy, but how she didn't engage with that point at all that Jack made about the 220,000 jobs mostly being because of population growth. She didn't seem to engage with that. Not even 1%. Not even 1%.
That proportionate to overall job creation in the economy, it is actually small. In terms of
you would agree, though,
misery,
just on that point, you would agree that the vast majority of those is because of the forecast population growth.
well, a growing economy creates more jobs, and this economy is
Growing
set to be
population
growing.
creates more demand.
Well, growth is born by population growth. It's also born by investment, firms deciding to create those jobs.
Human misery.
So if you go back to the context of my remarks, it was the taxpayers union saying actually they should be zero budgeting. And the point that I made there was the way they want to do that is removing all of the in-work tax credits, all of the work.
No, so her defence is this. Back then, I made some cuts. My words, not hers. Taxpayers union said we should make more cuts. I said to them, making more cuts back then would have caused human misery. Jack's point is, yeah, you've made more cuts, just not back then. Now, what's changed? Because if you got $100 in your hand and you take $50 from someone, Chewy, and they've got $50 in your hand, if you take that other $50 straight away or a month later, you're still taking both $50 from the person's hand. So what's changed?
Working for Families system that supports low and middle income working families, that would be a dramatic reduction in income for many, many families across the country. And my position was no, I'm not going to do that. I think that's unreasonable. The alternative that our government has been sticking to is to continuously be reprioritising, to find savings, to take some tough.
That word reprioritising is doing quite a lot of heavy lifting. That word reprioritising is cuts, funding elsewhere. That's what that means. Remember, they're reprioritising. It's taking money, making cuts in one area, and putting money in others. And remember, sometimes these cuts are net positive for this government. We heard about how they were going to, the poorest in New Zealand who are in state houses were going to be paying $30 a week more for their state house. But this government was going to give, you remember Whānau? $15 a week more to some other low income. So there's a $15 profit for this government, a $15 left over after they reprioritise some of that money.
Sticking to is to continuously be reprioritising, to find savings, to take some tough choices such as getting rid of the fees-free policy for tertiary students. And by doing that, we can chart a path back to surplus, and that's what we've done.
So,
wow. There's lots of questions about the surplus, which we're not going to get into completely tonight. But Chewy, I've got one more clip. But sir, on the cuts causing human misery, she's right. But as Jack said, more tolerance for misery seems to be the only answer there.
Jack's question there is probably the most savage one he has ever asked. And he needs a hype squad with air horns around him if he's going to pull that shit off regularly. I think he's right to focus the fact on these. Yeah, like that. That should have just automatically gone off. I don't care if it cheapens the manner of the show. It needs to happen. But he is right to drag it back from just fucking numbers. And these are predictions that Treasury did, and this is the economic roadmap that you're following, and the ideological cogs that turn, and this is what it produces, and go, these are humans. You are causing human misery, uncertainty, pain, and deprivation, and you're cool with that, right? That is a hell of a question.
Yeah, because you have to be. You have to be cool with it. Even if you don't like admitting that you're cool with it, the only response theoretically is you are, because you've made a choice and you are okay with the choice that you've made. And the choice that you've made has caused more misery. So you're okay with more misery because you're okay with the choice you've made that caused more misery. You might not want to acknowledge it, but you've made a choice. You're okay with that choice. That choice has caused more misery. You're okay with causing more misery. Last clip from these guys. You said that question, Chewy. The throwaway comment about Obergel X at the end of this, where basically Jack Tame says to the Minister of Finance, you could just make up numbers, he doesn't use these words, and pretend it away like you did with Obergall X, that's what that comment means at the end, about how much does child poverty cost New Zealand. There's also a conversation in here that I want us to keep an eye on. Last week, Prime Minister of New Zealand told John Campbell on RNZ that he should be careful with what he's saying. In this clip, Nicola Willis, Minister of Finance, tells Jack Tame, be careful, comes out again. Now, have I taken it out of context or not?
Let's see.
You can see, you can decide.
All of those really important initiatives.
How much does child poverty cost our economy?
Well, child poverty costs us in particular if a child is not able to fulfil their potential.
Let's go back and have a look.
Did that? I'm not crazy here. She shrugged.
I don't know. Let's have a look.
It's really important
How
initiatives.
much does child poverty cost our economy?
Well, child poverty costs.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well,
none of my kids are in poverty.
She's about to know because Jack's about to give her a dollar figure. But first of all, she'll give the pablum answer, which is, children need to fulfill their full potential. And if they can't,
get better parents.
It costs all of us and our aura. Let's keep going, shall we?
Costs us in particular if a child is not able to fulfil their potential. And
But
I
in
believe,
economic terms, what do you think it costs us?
people will cost that in different ways.
So OECD says about 3.4% for European and European countries and Canada. So if we were to extrapolate that across our economy, we're looking at something like $15 billion a year. When we talk about the fiscal burden of superannuation, rightly so, we talk about the cost of failing education system, but there are 47,000 more children today in material hardship than in 2022. In strictly economic terms, if you remove the moral component, why isn't that crisis worthy of a stronger intervention?
Well, in terms of material hardship, there are a number of factors that go into that. Our government is supporting the lunch program in schools. We continue to fund that in this budget, the Kickstart breakfast program.
But a stronger intervention. Why isn't that?
Yeah, so Jack's saying, this is what you are doing, but I've just said to you, you could spend $15.4 billion on these children, and it would be a net positive payoff. So why aren't we doing more? What more could you do? Not what are you doing? What more could you do is what he's asking.
So what policies do you think that this government has brought out that has affected poor children? Right, there's the increase in childcare costs. There's the increase in social housing rents. There's been absolutely nothing done to chill the supermarket duopoly out. There's been no fuel assistance for people on lower incomes. Public transport hasn't received any funding. Like, all of these things affect poor families with poor children.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what Jack's... There's a bunch of things that this government could do and should do that, without even targeting it, would flow on to poor children.
Yeah. All right. Let's keep going.
In this budget, the Kickstart breakfast program.
But a stronger intervention. Why isn't that? If you think about that fiscal component, like $15 billion a year, roughly, why doesn't that warrant a much stronger response?
Because I think underneath it all, Jack, yes, we could double benefits tomorrow.
Oh, do it.
And the child poverty stats would look better. But actually...
Nicola Willis has the answer.
Nicola Willis
has just fixed it. Child
The
poverty.
government that solved child poverty is a hell of a thing to run on.
Child poverty could go away tomorrow if they doubled benefits. So have we done those numbers, Minister? What are we spending in other areas? I don't know. Let's think about big tobacco landlords that we could potentially put towards doubling and end child poverty. Oh my gosh, Chewy, I think we're going to come up with, the government is in real time discovering the answer for child poverty and how to get rid of it. Fantastic.
That's tomorrow. And the child poverty stats would look better. But actually, would we be in a situation where those...
I don't know if you noticed Jack's eyebrows there. So when she says better, just watch his eyebrows. It's like
I'm
really?
surprised they're still on his fucking head, to be honest.
See if we can get close enough. Watch his eyebrows. Jack's eyebrows.
Poverty stats would look better. But actually, would we be in a situation where those children and their families were better off for the longer term?
Yes.
Our view is the
If they're
best
not in
way.
poverty, surely
the
it would
best
be.
way to help those families is for them to get the dignity and independence of work.
Yeah, but they're not
And
getting
actually,
that
that's
either.
what all of the research.
Well, whilst unemployment numbers are going up. So there's not enough work out there for it. There's not enough money in the business economy to employ them. They're unable to get jobs. And your response is, if they only went out and got a job, they would feel so good about themselves that child poverty would disappear and everyone would feel good. On the other hand, if we doubled benefits, child poverty would go away.
So hang on. What was the number that Jack said that child poverty costs us per year?
About 15 billion, a little bit over 15.4, I think he said.
15 billion. So I just had a quick look. New Zealand spends $47.5 billion on social security and welfare.
That'll
And
include everything, including the pension and everything.
23 billion of that is New Zealand super. So you take that away, you've got about 24.5
20 billion? 20 billion-ish?
Yeah, say 20 billion per year. So if you times two, cool. So now we're spending $49 billion on benefits that could filter through to children, but that is offset by $9 billion worth of savings per year. But you can sit there and go, New Zealand doesn't have poor, hungry children. We've solved that. And I bet there's other benefits to increasing the benefit. Like, we don't have rough sleeping anymore. People can afford to pay rent. I'm just saying, maybe people aren't getting sick as often and having to have a draw on the public health system. Maybe people aren't interacting with the justice system and police as much. So we're not spending as much on prison. Do you see how this works?
Yeah.
Do you see?
So let's keep going. This has got about a minute total to go.
The dignity and independence of work. And actually, that's what all of the research shows, that when you are working, you're better off not just financially.
Was that research word? I didn't think this government did the research thing. Is that?
No.
Maybe not. Maybe so.
All of the research shows that when you are working, you're better off not just financially, but in terms of your mental health, your engagement with your community, your sense of purpose.
That's the parents, though. I'm talking about the children, right? And so if you lifted children out of poverty,
too, Jack, because then they see what it is to be earning through work. They see the dignity.
So the children finally get to see what a good parent looks like, Chewy. You know, the one working a minimum wage job, spending less time with their child and travelling to and from work. That's a good parent. Parent on a benefit, bad parent. So finally, this is what it's about. Nicola Willis is just trying to help the children of New Zealand have better parents by getting them into work that there's not available as the numbers of unemployed go up and businesses shrink and crash through this government's driving of the economy.
Off too, Jack, because then they see what it is to be earning through work. They see the dignity and independence that
surely
brings.
full bellies and warm homes is going to put them
Well, in New Zealand,
better
that's
stead
why
as
we
well.
have a very strong social safety net so that there is income provided to those who aren't working so they can feed their children. And be careful, because there are people on a benefit right now who are doing an extremely good job for their kids. Those kids are being well fed.
Right.
They are being well housed. They are in a good situation. So it's wrong to say that everyone on a benefit is somehow not doing enough for them.
Said nobody ever at any point in this conversation or interview.
They are in a good situation. So it's wrong to say that everyone on a benefit is somehow not doing enough for their kids. I disagree with that.
It wasn't my characterisation at all. The only realistic way New Zealand's going to hit our Paris climate targets in 2030 is by buying offshore credits in your budget.
So here we go, Chewy. I just realised we've got one more clip as well. Maybe we're going to have to leave it for tomorrow night. But it's an interesting one about the 2030 climate change. What do you think? Have we ripped straight into it? Have we got 3 minutes left in us? What are your thoughts, Chewy?
Oh, you're going to risk the 2-hour show?
What are your thoughts? Should Should we rip into it?
Go on.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good. It's pretty good from old Jack. Talking about hitting our 2030 climate targets without buying offshore credits. And it's actually a very interesting dynamic in this part of the conversation, because he just states a fact. For us to hit, we'll need to buy. And she spends 3 minutes not answering the question or arguing about that fact. And it's not controversial. There's no other way we can hit them without buying offshore credits. Nicola. And the Dex, I mean, she would be a gold winning medalist at the gymnastics with this dexterity through this answer.
New Zealand's going to hit our Paris climate targets in 2030 is by buying offshore credits. In your budget advice this week, Treasury said, quote, substantial purchases of offshore mitigation are likely to be required. Will you spend billions in offshore credits necessary to hit our 2030 targets?
That seems very, very unlikely. I think it would be very challenging for any New Zealand politician to go to the public and say the place we're going to put the billions is into some offshore climate scheme.
Right. So just last week, we signed
offshore climate scheme,
a UN General Assembly resolution which, quote, calls upon all parties to the Paris Agreement to comply with their respective treaty obligations. As a country that depends on international cooperation and the rules-based order, what does it say about our integrity that at literally the same time as we are urging countries to meet their Paris commitments, we are openly flouting ours?
Well, we intend to uphold our international commitments. There's still
except
water.
For that 2030 one.
No, but there's water to go under the bridge between now and 2030.
You've just said it's very unlikely. I mean,
what I said was unlikely was that we would send cheques overseas to meet that obligation.
Can you point to any advice that says we will be able to meet the 2030 targets without buying offshore credits?
Well, there is still water to go under the bridge.
Can you point to any projections?
This is a bit like Dave Rubin, actually, if you think about it.
Yeah, 100%.
Suggest we can hit that 2030 target without buying the credits.
If you let me finish my answer, I'm happy to answer it, which is that if you look internationally, we're certainly not the only country for whom there's a gap between their projected emissions and the emissions they set out to be at in 2030.
So we're shit like they're shit. So it all evens out. It's just one big pile of shit.
How the world resolves that within the international framework is yet to play out. And New Zealand intends to contribute constructively to that process. We're continuing to reduce our emissions here at home. We're on track for the targets we set under our own domestic law, the Zero Carbon Act. We're continuing to meet those emission reduction periods. The shame of it is that James Shaw set a far more ambitious target internationally.
It's such a shame to be ambitious, Chewie. I mean, this government never talks about being ambitious and being a country to try and punch above its weight or anything. The shame of it is James Shaw had ambition.
It is that James Shaw set a far more ambitious target internationally than was legislated for here at home.
John Key set the original targets. They were upgraded by the previous government.
James ramped them up big time.
So I let you answer, but you didn't answer. My question was, can you point to any projection that shows we can hit our 2030 target without buying offshore credits?
Well, as I've said, I think that new ways of meeting the targets could emerge over the next couple of years.
Right. So to my question, though, the answer is
how countries approach that and what the approach is to meeting those international obligations is yet to play out. We're certainly not the only country in the world in this situation.
Yeah.
If we were,
I asked if you could give us a prediction.
But if we were some sort of complete outsider, then I'd understand your question. But we sit with a group of countries who are similarly challenged.
You understand the question. The question is very straightforward. Can New Zealand hit those 2030 targets? Is there any forecast that shows we can hit those 2030 targets without buying offshore credits? If there were, I'm sure you would tell us.
That's not the point that I'm making to you. Is it's not a binary between buying offshore targets, credits, or reducing them here at home. What we might find is that internationally, the way of upholding those obligations, new pathways and approaches may emerge.
We could Obergall X the targets, as it were. Pete Hegseth, freeloading.
Fucking murdered.
Oh, I'm wondering
if... whole answer there is, no, I'm not saying that at all. We could solve this with something that hasn't been invented yet.
Yeah. We'll see.
Something could happen. Aliens could arrive.
Yeah, we'll see.
I could literally find a money bazooka that fires carbon credits. Nobody knows, Jack. We'll just wait and see. What a shit attempt to answer that, or wiggle out of it at least. That is weak.
Oh, Chewie.
Wow.
I've got a bit of an itch. My itch is to play the last clip. I mean, everyone has just said he's cooking, because the last clip actually refers back to what I said about a previous interview we watched, where this government is basically going, and it was Mr. Luxon talking to Heather Duplessis, but this government is basically going, we'll keep an eye on it, like we've just heard, without actually saying this is what could happen. Like, in other words, what you've just heard is Nicola Willis saying, well, there's time to figure that out, right? That's what she's saying. So no answers. And in this part of the conversation, they are talking about the banking levy, I think. I'm pretty sure this is where it is, because it's the last clip I've got, with her talking about, Jack's asking about, so you're talking about passing on the debt, these taxes. What if all the banks agree to pass it on, then what? And her response is no more than, well, we'll keep an eye on that. What about a potential solution if that happens? Like, what would you do? So I think it's worth watching. It's going to be a long show tonight, and then we'll say a very quick good night at the end.
Portion to the revenue and profits that banks have.
So if they do choose to pass it on, we'll be paying extra to the banks and extra to insurers
Well,
as well.
I think that you've got different banks. They're not going to all do the same thing.
Why
And
not?
I think that New Zealand
surely the incentive for the banks, though, is to all act together.
Because New Zealanders aren't stupid, Jack. And actually, if they see their bank putting on some sort of extra charge to reflect a tiny, tiny prudential levy,
so it'll be a tiny, tiny extra charge. Remember that. If it's going to be less than 1% of their profits, it's going to be less than 1% on your bill. So it's going to be less than a cent per dollar on your bill, because it's less than 1%.
goodness me, they should shop around.
And what if all the banks do it?
Well, I would be extremely surprised if they did that, and I will be watching closely.
Watching closely?
Yes.
What can you do? What can you do as finance minister? What regulatory levers do you have to force them to?
Well, I'm looking very carefully at the taxation of banks as a whole, because when we look at our tax system for New Zealand banks compared to most particularly Australia, where there are exactly the same banks operating, there are some differences in it. And I think, yes, you want to have banks investing in New Zealand. They deliver really important services. They bring cash into our economy. They help businesses grow. All of that's true, but it's also the case that they should be taxed fairly.
Yeah, that's not what I asked, though. I asked, what regulatory levers do you have as
well,
finance
right now,
minister?
let's just be clear. Everyone in New Zealand, through their general taxation, is paying for the regulatory services provided to banks. In other countries in the world, banks pay for those services directly.
What does this have to do anything about his question? What has it got to do with it?
So all I'm saying is let's apply a fair principle and do that well.
Yeah, I've just asked you twice, though, and you haven't answered.
Ask me what?
What are the regulatory levers you have as finance minister to force the banks not to pass that tax on to their customers?
Well, we will consider that.
You haven't considered it already? You've introduced a tax without considering what levers you have?
Well, there's always the opportunity, Jack, as I'm trying to make it very clear, that we can take further action.
You're failing at that.
You're failing so hard.
So what would that further action entail?
Well, we haven't made that decision as a cabinet, so I'm not going to get ahead of my colleagues.
Sure, what are some of the options, though? I said, what regulatory levers might you potentially have?
Well, the key regulatory lever, and I'm presenting this to you, and you're discounting it, but it's a real thing, is that people can choose to shop around. And
That's not a regulatory lever, Nicola. That's not a regulatory lever. That's people, the consumer, making a decision. That's got nothing to do with regulation, that the government has a way to pull that lever. It's not, people moving banks is not a regulatory lever.
Counting it, but it's a real thing, is that people can choose to shop around. And so
that's not a regulatory
no, but we can be transparent about what we're seeing. The Reserve Bank can monitor what's happening in terms of pricing and how that this is being borne. And I think you just have to be proportionate about it. This is a tiny, tiny proportion of the overall cost base for banks.
But it is still one. I mean, the banks answer to their shareholders, ultimately.
Yes.
They have a fiduciary duty, right? So if the shareholders, many of whom are overseas, say, no, we enjoy our profits just as they are, thanks, you can pass those on to your customers, there is no regulatory measure that you as finance minister can pull in order to stop them from doing that.
Well, we can consider that in due course.
Oh my goodness. So the response is, I don't know, we'll have a look at that. Should it come up?
What a bunch of bullshit. This whole free market, you can shop around thing is just such a fucking crock. We have seen that time and time again. Oh, we'll introduce competition and that will keep prices the same. No. You essentially get everything up to the line of cartel behavior from the power companies, from the supermarkets, from the banks. We have seen this. You need to hit them with a hammer to do the right thing at every time, because Jack's right. The fiduciary responsibility they have is to their shareholders to deliver a dividend.
You must.
They can't just turn around. You cannot turn around to your shareholders and just go, well, the government says that we've got to play nice, so we better. You can't. The shareholders would sack the entire board. It is nonsense. The government does own a bank, however.
Yeah,
they are a shareholder of a bank. Maybe, if New Zealanders are shopping around, maybe the government's turned around to the bank that they fucking own and say, you are not to pass this on to the customers. We don't want the dividend. Maybe. But our finance minister doesn't know what she can or can't do and doesn't understand what tools she might or might not be able to use. She also doesn't know how she's going to solve the climate credit thing, which the Greens called her out on before the budget came out. They were 100% right on this. $1 billion hole. What a fucking disaster of a finance minister we have.
Thanks for being with us tonight, Whānau. Really appreciate your time. It's been a cracker. I know. I figured that. 2 hours and 52 seconds as I speak to you. Appreciate your support. Thank you for watching. Thank you for sharing what we do. Obviously, the clips and stuff will be coming out over the next few days. Another way you can share and support us is as a patron. Patreon.com/Big Hairy News. After the show tonight, I will probably, although I need to start editing and it's already 11 o'clock, be putting out the invite to the levers that it's applicable to and to the lever membership levels that it's not. I will make available a way that you can join in the meetup this week should you want to. Patreon.com/Big Hairy News. And as you know, this show runs off the backs of our patrons. As you know, we have some pretty big events coming up in the second half of the year, of which I've been working a lot on in the last 48 hours. I, of course, am going away on Monday, so I would like by the end of this week to kind of have all of that nailed down to be able to let you know what's happening when. We may not have, for example, locations finally sorted, but I think we're hoping to have people who are going to be involved, dates, times, that sort of thing of our events for the second half of the year. But that's it for tonight, Joe. Let's get to these super chats and then say goodnight. Ryjan, Nicola can encourage me into work by putting up the amount of people on supported living can work before the deduction kicks in so I can get more hours. Did I read that right? Encourage me into work by putting up the amount of people on supported living can work before the deduction kicks in. Sometimes I don't know because of my dyslexia whether I read it well. Nikki No Aura says, thank you for the super chat, Ryjan. Thank you for your super chat, Laura. Exaldeer 111, I'd like to report an unaliving by Jack. 15mm Gustavus, give the kids ciggies. Casey Costello approves. We have got Laura again. Let them eat soggy cigarettes. Nicotine Willis. Alex says, Nikki is just dying to call them future Māori dole bludgers on air, but she knows she can't say that. Over Red Rover, that's 7 days a week or 14 days, 2 weeks. XL Deer says, Nikki went woke, tax the banks. And I think the last one for tonight, quite tricky to regulate the same people that are donating to your political campaign. Mm-hmm. Yes, interesting perspective. All right, team. It's been huge. I've got a couple more nights before I'm away for 2 weeks. I'm gagging. I'm gagging at it, Chewy. I'm gagging to do it. I'm going to go and sit in the rainforest in Queensland. And I like it how you say that, and then people will. They would never have thought about it if you hadn't said it.
Mm-hmm. That's such a useful clip.
And then, so I've got 2 more before I'm away because, of course, it's a short week. and I am trying to get a couple of interviews with people this week. I'm not going to tease them in case they don't happen, but you will be happy. Find out if we get them. And other than that, Chewy, I think it's just time to say good night, don't you think? If there's anything else you really want to add in?
Nice time. No,
no nice time.
We've gone way long, and it's not my fault, so I will remain blameless.
It's actually Nicola Willis's fault, but that's okay.
It is her fault. There's so many things that are her fault.
We won't hold it against you. We'll see you tomorrow night, team.
Help us settle a debate, whether it be thoughtful or funny, even if we're all creatures of hate. It's a fine line that we're walking together. For better, push aside the temptation to berate. Let's take a note of the corners we stand in. As many points as the hairs on my chinny chin chin. When the news that we're watching is hairy, knowing all the things that we need to be wary of. Like the rich have the hand out for rewards, while the many have to work out what they can't afford. And the rest of us ain't paying attention, or maybe have questions we're too worried to mention. Other media is still dwelling on trivial facts, vetting bees from the rice and the mice from the rats, and picking and choosing a warpath to run, linking ourselves with the hill to die on. It's gotta come down to a welcoming vibe, with an A and a self and a higher in mind. All have a lean either this way or that, and will be analyzed by both Chewy and Pat. With the evil in the world trying to mess with your head, and you're sitting on the couch, you're thinking chivalry's dead. Each night, 2 nights, they're gonna sing you to bed. It's big hairy news.
I got nothing, Chewy. Anything to wrap up?
No, nothing for me. Big show. Brain
Big show.
turned
Good
very
show.
soupy.
All right, team. Catch you tomorrow night from 9 p.m. for the next edition of Big Hairy News. Hooroo!
Cheers, fam.